Hey all, you'll see a couple of pictures that I've taken over the years at this point on disregardingdice.com. If you wanted to take pictures like these, I always get a lot of questions of how I get these looking exactly how they do. Let's get into it. To start, you're gonna need about 4 different things. A relatively dark matte, a camera that'll have a few different settings we'll go over, a tripod, and lastly, a light. These 4 items is everything you're going to need to take great photos of minis anywhere. Just need to find something to put that mat over, kind of make a nice little wall. Then you'll place your mini in the crook or elbow of that wall. And then about 2 to 4 feet away, depending on what the space you have, put your tripod. On top of that tripod, you're gonna wanna screw in your camera. With just these 4 items, you're gonna be able to make a ton of awesome photos, either on the go or at your place, by changing just a few simple settings. The first thing we're gonna wanna do is go in and change the exposure. What this does is it makes it so it kind of controls how long the camera is taking the photo for. This is on a lot of different kinds of cameras, but probably not on your phones by default. So you'll need to find a camera body that has this. That's almost any camera. What you're gonna want is something around 2 to 4 seconds. This means the camera will actively be taking this picture for 4 seconds, keeping its sensor open, almost like a 4-second video gets condensed into one image. That'll make a lot more sense as we go on. Next, you're gonna wanna have a high f-stop. An f-stop is essentially how small the hole is that lets in light. Higher f-stops help with miniature photography a ton. The ability to change your f-stop essentially sets it so that the light coming in is very narrow. That means you can collect a lot of light without any kind of blur. And that's important because that helps us shrink the amount of light that we're gonna get. It also makes sure that more and more things are in focus. Set the camera's ISO to low. This is the camera's light sensitivity. If it's really low, all of the detail grabbed in the camera is much higher, and it takes much more light to make an image, which is what we're going to want for our long exposures. See this picture, and you might have noticed something here that changed, and that's how I move my light. Essentially, the camera is taking a picture over the course of 4 seconds. Miniature photos often feel like they have these sharp shadows that don't give a lot of detail of the miniature and kind of miss a lot of the great work that painters put into the models. What we want to do is create incredibly flat lighting all over the model. To do this, we can move the light around our miniature. This is an example where I kind of go to the left and try to grab the underside of the model, go to the right, try to grab the underside. Then I circle around the top, making sure I hit some of the light from the back to separate it from the background. This ability done really quickly over 2, 3, 4 seconds gives a really nice studio flat light look that's going to make sure that you grab all of the detail in that model real quick. This is an example result. The great thing about this is everything's in focus. You can see a high level of detail. You can set this up pretty much anywhere, and it has flat lighting where you can see the whole miniature. Depending on what you're looking at, these amount of lighting you get, it essentially lights up more the miniature than even some of the most professional rigs. Because we can move that light around the area, everything looks like it's bright, blown up. Nothing's in shadow here. We can't see a single shadow on this miniature, and that's the effect that we're looking for to make sure we grab all of those details. Now, a lot of people ask me what kind of gear they need, so I figured at the end of the video here, or towards the end, I would show you what it looks like as we upgrade our gear. The first thing would be to get a relatively expensive lens. This is, one of Sony's very nice lenses. I do photography as a hobby outside of miniatures, which is why I own this. But let's go take a look at what this makes. Same camera with a new lens. As we look at this image, we can actually see that it's a little more rich in color. The glass here is more clear, so we actually have a little bit better contrast, and we're able to pick up on some more images. Turns out glass that doesn't distort things is very expensive, which is why a lot of these lenses have their high price tag. Last, what if we upgraded the body? And this is an example if we were to use a more professional body. Now, put side by side, these images are pretty hard to tell apart, honestly. And the reason I am doing this at the end is you're probably looking at these, maybe not noticing a ton between any of them. Honestly, on the left here, the colors are maybe a bit more muted than the center and right with that better lens. But to most people, also with some quick edits in any kind of photo software, those would be very trivially to make look almost exactly the same. And so I would say that the quality of camera is probably not nearly as important as the kind of technique that you're using to grab nice lighting, nice focus. To go into just a little more detail here, if we go into the flamethrower and we see on this relatively cheap Sony, I think 6200 body or something, the image quality here and the details it's able to grab are very close to identical. The lens on the left, I think, is less than $50. The lens on the right is over 2,000. So this is like the most extreme edges. But honestly, I think if you're just going to grab this and post it on Instagram, unless you're doing maybe professional work that you were going to put into a magazine, you wouldn't really consider the higher end gear, as the lower end stuff that costs, I don't know, a tenth of as much, or way less than half, produces an image that's, to my eye, very, very close. And then if we go further, this is if we switch out bodies. Now, oftentimes bodies can have a more stated effect. We'll see, obviously, the resolution of the image on the right just there's more pixels in it, right? We can see a little more detail of the holes in this flamethrower. The dynamic range, I think specifically when I look at this flamer, the yellow to the orange, that transition, I can see more detail in it in the image on the right. Also, the subtleness of the blacks and the various shades of blacks, those get picked up a little bit better on the right side as well. That's because the dynamics range of camera sensors kind of is a lot of what you pay for, as well as just the amount of pixels. That said, we're probably really, really looking for small details when comparing these two. Body, that's probably you could find on eBay for $100, $200, and then the one on the right, which is going to run you maybe 10 times as much as that. These are nice changes, but nothing that's going to hold you back from getting started. It's not going to be game changing when you're just getting into taking miniature photos, or well into miniature photography. And then this is the last example, just showing a bit more of the resolution difference here. On the right image, if we blow the top of that book up, you can see a little more detail is grabbed from a higher, end body. The purple and yellow, we can see that they're actually quite a bit different in value in terms of like the purple is brighter than the yellow. That doesn't really come through on the left, but might come through on the right. These kinds of small differences, I mean, honestly, you should probably just be looking at this and be like, oh, okay, they're pretty much the same. You could, we can pick out some changes and some little subtle differences for anyone getting into or interested in how to take photography, and you're thinking about buying a camera specifically for miniature photography. It's not something where you gotta go big or go home. It's really anything you can find on eBay used or whatever is probably going to treat you just right. With that all said, I hope that was super helpful. What I hope is more people get interested in mini photography. With these 4 items, you can essentially bring it to any event and get high quality images. If you want to check out some of the images that I've been able to make, essentially bouncing around a lot of North America, going to different events, you can check out my site Disregarding Dice. And I hope you all have a really enjoyable time going out and shooting your friends' miniatures, your miniatures, and posting them online for everyone to see. Thanks.